What's going on? It's your boy DameSmiff, and this evening we're going to discuss the topic of avoiding gang affiliation as a musician and artist. And so, if this is something that interests or concerns you as an artist, make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. So, in a nutshell, for those of you who are like living under a rock, what is a gang? A gang is just a group of individuals who have formed essentially a small little like organization, and they use different means of services and acts to try and make money and just sustain themselves in society. The stigma they have is a bad one because most of them usually tend to do things that are illegal. And so the reason you want to avoid these organizations and groups as a musician, if that's what you want your occupation to be, is because it hinders a lot of the opportunities available to you statistically. Like there's a few members and affiliated people who can like make a living from music solely, or with the incorporation of music within their careers, but it's few and far between when you think about the grand scheme of the music industry. Okay, and so this is going to be more important for people who are interested in getting started in the music industry. So if you're already in it, you pretty much will just know most of the things we're going to cover. But who are the people that typically are targeted for recruitment for these kinds of organizations? Well, typically they're younger people, like usually around like middle school to like high school age people, right? And this is usually because of the opportunities that's laid in front of them. So this would be similar to like if a record label went to somebody who was, let's say, low income, and they offered them a big sum of money up front for, let's say, like two albums, two studio albums. That's essentially how typically people get recruited. They're young and you get offered maybe some quick money, maybe some, you know, validation, or maybe some other form of opportunity, right? And so you then get attached to something that is lifelong. And the problem that you're going to run into is the idea that you may have for your personal or your individual success may not fit this piece of the puzzle that you're adding into the picture. Okay. So let's look at, for example, what a successful musician will look like, right? And obviously, most people are going to say money. You know, you're going to make a lot of money and you want to sell a lot of records and you want people to appreciate the art that you make, right? But we also have to consider the opportunities that come with being a successful artist. Like, why do you want to perform at the Super Bowl? Why do you want a top number one Billboard album and things like that, right? What comes with that? And so when you say these things out loud and you start to like really envision what you want, say like you want a family, or maybe you want to travel the world, or maybe if you're like a single person, maybe you just want to, be a bachelor or a bachelorette and just date a bunch of people and have a bunch of relationships and fun and drive fast cars and stuff, right? The problem that you're going to run into is that in order for that to be fulfilled, you're going to have to take certain steps to be successful, right? And some of those steps may not fit within your morality or maybe other people's morality. So when we were talking about like what is a gang, remember I mentioned that typically they like to do things that are illegal. And the reason a lot of these things are illegal because of the morality behind it, right? Like it's not cool to steal or hurt people or hurt vulnerable people and things like that, right? But it's one of the things that these organizations and groups of people tend to do in order to maintain themselves, right? And so if you've done one of these things or one of these or affiliated with some of these groups, it may be difficult for you to work with people who may be anti these groups or anti these types of activities that may be illegal too. Maybe they can't, collaborate with you on a song because of your affiliation with certain organizations. And this can, like I said, hinder your success. Because let's say if you're a musician, you play trumpet, but you're affiliated with a certain group, and an opportunity comes across your table, but they need somebody who has a clean record. And in order for you to have a clean record, you would have had to have avoided your affiliation, right? This now means that you can't take advantage of that opportunity. You lose out. And in a simpler way to explain it is like if you've committed a robbery at 17 and then wound up getting charged for it or something like that, right? Or let's say 22 or something. And then you serve your time, you serve society. But then at 53, you want to learn guitar and you wind up being extremely successful. This may hinder the opportunities that come with it because of maybe the details of, your story, or maybe the intention behind your story or things like that. Whatever we want to nitpick about your story, it is ammo for people that either don't like you or will find a reason to not like you. And so you want to avoid these things, especially as a younger artist. And this is why it's usually younger people that are targeted for recruitment, because these opportunities that you're willing to sacrifice, us older people who know better, we will see them a lot clearer. We can see a 30-year-old, or let's say late 20-year-old person to say, I have work in the morning, I don't need to be doing this bullshit. We can see that more likely than a 15-year-old kid who just wants some sneaker money. He's obviously going to take the opportunity. He's not going to be able to envision that when he's 43 he wants to pick up maybe you know learning jazz music or teaching jazz music or something like that. It's not gonna click in his head as easily. So that's why they're targeted. So why is this important? Well, understanding this as a young musician is important because now you can see what paths you need to take for the success you say you want. And again, as a younger musician, you're going to have to shape what it is that you want. The idea that, I'll use hip hop for an example, if you want to be a successful rapper, that there's some kind of struggle you need to go through is a lie. There is a musical skill struggle, and that's about it. You need to just be a good rapper and, well, and good at business as well, right? There is no group, there is no organization, there is no race, there's no country, there is nothing that's going to make you better than the number one rapper or musician, than your skill and your work ethic. And so I think once you can kind of settle that into your lifestyle, then you'll realize, okay, yeah, there are certain organizations I don't need to be affiliated with. And in this conversation, we're using like, you know, criminal organizations and gangs as an example, but this could be something like, a political organization, or maybe you shouldn't be affiliated with just certain kinds of people, certain characteristics of people, like thieves. Maybe you shouldn't hang out with thieves if you want people to like you, or maybe you shouldn't hang out with, you know, creepy or perverted people because, and you want people to like you and trust you and, hang around you with their valuables. But this is simply just a kind of like a peek, in my opinion, in the conversation. I think it's really something that we should focus on, especially when it comes to teaching people about music, that there are certain political steps you should be taking. But this was enjoyable. Make sure you let me know with a like, and ask me a question in the comments whether or not you've made the right choice in your career, and should you consider making a change. Let me know.